Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome. And apologies for being late. We were doing some tech work behind the scenes, but it's great to have everybody tuned in and ready and raring to go this evening. I saw Wes was in early, Scott Wingo, and many others are anxious to see the interview we have going on tonight. But it is not a claim show. I saw Scott was tongue in cheek asking if you could claim any of the artworks that we were going to look at tonight. But no, you cannot. But you're more than welcome to ask us questions while we're doing the interview, and as many of you know, well, let's just bring Jim in here and we'll get this whole thing started. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Hey Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
All right.
I saw somebody saying
I can't wait for your show.
well, I'm glad to hear that. You've watched a few of them in the past? I think you were on.
No. I meant your show in Orlando.
Oh, that show. Oh my God.
That show. I'm going to be there this year.
I was just
I mean,
I was confirming
unless something really bad happens, I'm going to be there.
Well, I didn't think we'd dive right into OAX right away, but yeah, no, I can't. I wish you could have been there year one.
I wish I could have too, and I wish Roger Hill was still with us too.
That is so true. I know we had a bad weekend for that. There were several collectors that told me the same reason because of Roger Hill's passing and everything that they were not able to go to OAX that first year. But how well did you know Roger? Roger was a guy in the hobby who I never got to speak to. I'd emailed with him numerous times.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I knew him I didn't know him that well. Todd knew him really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably talk to him a few times a year. Usually he would want to borrow something for his research.
Mm-hmm.
And it would always come back better than when I sent it to him.
Wow.
He would clean up the stats and then send it back to me. And occasionally he would want to do a trade, and I always said yes. And we had cordial conversations, but I wouldn't say we were close because I only met him in person once.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very collegial, and I think it was pretty. I mean, I really liked him, and I think he liked me. But I wouldn't say that I knew him well.
Right. You knew everybody sort of knew part of his collection, the pieces that he had in it. It was always, we didn't know until the full breadth of some of the pieces he had. But yeah, I didn't know that about him. I knew that he was involved in publishing, but I didn't know that he had any skill at, cleaning up artwork or those sorts of things.
He was he ran a printing company.
Yeah.
So he had all that equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And he was artistic himself. And, I also knew him through Jerry Wiest. Because, Jerry would talk about Roger all the time. And I'm sure he would talk about me with Roger. And Jerry and I were very close. So.
Interesting. So, that's looking at that era of people involved in our hobby. Roger's up there, you're up there. I mean, like you're saying, Wiest is up there. Has there been any definitive book written about that era of fandom? Those early fanzines and everything.
Yeah.
What's a good?
There have been some great books written about it. And I will try to look at I probably have them on my bookshelf right in front of me, and I will look for them because I don't remember their names.
All right. Well, I would love to get a list of them.
But there are some really good books on fandom, and I was myself a comic book fanzine publisher in 1964 and 1965 when I was 11 and 12 years old.
Wow. I
published 8 fanzines that I have. Not only do I have copies of them, but I have full scans of every one of them posted on my website as PDFs.
Well, I'm taking down some notes. I'm going to have to go check that out after the show's over.
Okay.
How did you distribute them in the early 60s?
Just networking. I mean, and I sold comic books in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I met other fanzine publishers. The Herring brothers, who published Odd. I don't know if you've ever
I've heard of Odd, yeah.
um, and Dave Herring actually became a professional, sort of an underground comic artist. And I actually had some conversations with him 4 or 5 years ago. But I was taking bar mitzvah lessons when I was 12, and their house was 3 doors down from my tutor. So I would have my mom drop me off at their house like a couple hours before my lesson.
Wow.
And yeah, and I would hang out with the Herring brothers, who were, I would guess they were 4 and 6 years older than me.
Now, at that point, where did you live? Were you in the?
I lived in Wayland, Massachusetts,
Right.
west of Boston. They lived in Natick, which is the next town over, and the town where I actually grew up as a much younger child.
Okay. Wow. That's so, I think of the things that I've known about you, were coins early on, but clearly comics were a big part of your
Way
life.
before that. Yeah, way before coins. Like, I didn't become a coin dealer till I was 16, and I knew nothing about coins until I opened a stamp store that became a stamp and coin shop.
No, see, I would have thought it was the other way around. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So was the coins an easier, back to being.
It was good timing,
Yeah.
and I happened to have a knack for it. Much less so with other things I tried, but I for some reason I remembered all the coins, and I was pretty good at figuring out the coin business. I remember the first time I saw a copy of Coin World, and there were ads. It was a lot like Comic Buyer's Guides, and there were ads in the front offering to buy coins at, with the grades and prices that they would pay.
Mhm.
And then there were ads later on in the middle of the paper, maybe, where people were or in the the classifieds were more buying ads in the middle of the paper, where people were selling the exact same coins for half as much. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? And the simple answer was that the dealers had gotten into the habit of systematically overgrading, and I'm sure the same thing happened in comics.
Mhm.
Systematically overgrading, and the buyers would just buy them with very conservative grades, and the people who were buying them were probably selling them to the people who were selling them for half as much.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, was it? I mean, you always seemed to, I assume, kind of had this entrepreneurial streak. Do you think it was easier to get into coins and make a business and stamps, business around that versus comics at that point in time? Or
I don't know. I just had lost interest in comics
Mhm.
for whatever reason, and I had other businesses in between comics and stamps and coins, and I don't know. I just didn't go back to comics until the 90s.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
was it Heritage was started in 82, 84, somewhere around in there. So you still weren't
Well,
even.
no, actually, Steve and I became partners in 82, but his company had started in the early 60s, and mine started in 68. Really,
No.
New England started in 70 or 71.
Okay.
But I started in the coin business in 68. But
So
we tell everybody 1976 because that's when he started his auction company. I had started mine in 75, but his company was the surviving entity, so he uses his auction company as the base here, because he doesn't want to mislead anybody and make it sound longer
right.
than it was.
No, that makes sense. But now,
Yeah.
when he was doing the auctions in '76, were those just in-person auctions?
Yeah. Well, there was no internet.
right.
I
So
mean,
they,
he would take bids by mail or
mhm.
by phone, and then people would show up in person. And Steve and I had a deal when we started our auction companies. We made a deal that we would each personally attend the other's auctions, every one of them, and we always did.
Wow. So, that's that again. That's pretty neat. Now, one thing, yeah, I've read numerous times. Steve is referred to as like an arch rival. That
He
you
was,
partner.
yeah, he was an arch rival, but we were very friendly.
Okay.
We would go out to dinner probably every coin show. We were friends, but we were competing. I mean, we each wanted to win.
Right. Of course.
Yeah,
Well, that's it's interesting because a lot of the people who work for you over the years have been maybe not rivals, but had competing businesses.
sure.
Like All Star with
Yeah,
Yanarinos or
yeah. I don't burn bridges though.
right.
Yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no, exactly. But they come back. So
yeah.
the term arch rival is really more like a friendly competitor within the sphere with which you're doing business in.
Usually, for the most part, it's a very, very collegial business. All collectibles are
Mhm.
very collegial, and we need each other, and it's a symbiotic business in a way because the more dealers there are, the bigger the market,
That is true.
and the
Right.
more auction houses too.
Right. Right. Yeah. I was gonna like save like auction related questions for later, but
Uh-huh.
the kind of there was
Well,
a
you want to get into the art, and I don't. I
I
don't.
do want to get into the well, to be truthful, I actually usually end with the art, but
Oh, okay. All right.
versus starting up front. But now that you mentioned that, and there's more dealers today, more reps today than there's ever been in the comic art side of things, and
Well, yeah, but that's a lot. A lot of that's you. A lot of that's CAF.
what's I think we've helped in some ways, get people interested in the hobby. I think
Yeah.
our biggest challenge to this, at this point in time, and it's one that we all kind of face, is how do we grow the hobby to
Hmm.
get new collectors interested and in the right way? Because
Yep.
I've always talked about the idea that collecting art is it's not like collecting comics or coins. You can get burned really easily, and it's not as easy to kind of get to know other collectors in the sphere of people collecting. And so when you make mistakes early on, I've seen collectors kind of burn out in the first six
Yeah.
months because they don't,
Sure.
they feel like you make a few embarrassing mistakes and you just kind of rather put your head in the sand and not come back and do it again. So one of the
That actually happened to me early on.
really,
Yeah,
well,
it wasn't exactly a mistake, but um, I guess it's a short enough story I can tell it. And
yeah,
it
please,
happened.
I'm ready. We're all ready.
So the first time I bid in a Russ Cochran auction,
Mhm.
he had 43-man Squamish, George Woodridge Mad Story, very, very famous Mad Story. And I knew that my best friend, Mark Emery, loved that story. So I decided I was going to buy it for him as a gift. And I put in whatever the minimum bid was. I don't remember, a couple $100 probably. And I told Russ, and Russ said, "Do you want me to call you back if somebody bids higher?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'm going much higher. I'm buying it as a gift. Please call me back." And he didn't.
No.
And so I did not buy a piece of comic art for at least a year after that. I was really disappointed. And I heard that he had sold it, and in fact he did sell it to a staff member of Mad.
Mhm.
As a favor, he didn't call me back.
Oh wow. Well, that's
But Russ and I made up. I told him the
so. Was that
story.
in Russ's collection though? I mean, or was it something consigned to him?
It
That's
was
it. Yeah.
consigned to him. It was
Wow.
consigned to him
He
by Bill
really was
Gaines.
doing a favor to his consigner by not calling.
No, but it was just Bill probably knew he did it,
Right.
because the guy who bought it worked for Bill.
Right.
So I think it was just sort of him, thinking he was being a nice guy, and he didn't know me. And we talked about it later. I mean, we became very good friends later, and in fact, he consigned his collection to our second auction.
Mhm.
Um, but But that was a road bump along the way for me, and I probably would have bought a lot more art that year.
Now you were buying that from a friend. Were you buying art for yourself at that point too?
I was toying with the idea.
Yeah.
I was mostly buying Mad magazines back then. But I started to bid in the Christie's and Sotheby's sales, and eventually the Manning sales.
Hmm.
And right around that time.
Antoine was asking, when you say Bill, do you mean Bill Gaines, or who
Yeah,
are
Bill
you?
Gaines.
That's what I thought you meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Confirmed, Antoine. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
but I guess it was a little bit like the Wild West at that point in time. I mean, Russ was a pioneer, obviously.
He
And
sure was.
again, a guy I had booked to do a live interview with right before he passed. We were going to do one about 2 weeks. It was scheduled, and I'd never talked to him in person before. I was so looking forward to that. I mean, that's when I think about gentlemen from that era who were involved with fandom. I regret the people we've missed the opportunities to speak with. He's like right up there. I mean, the work that he
Oh
did
yeah.
reprinting the EC books and everything. I mean, he was a pioneer.
He sure was.
He definitely was.
Yeah, and he certainly, he was in the right place at the right time, and he and Bill Gaines were kind of kindred spirits.
Hmm.
And Bill Gaines had a problem and Russ had a solution, and so it worked out very well for both of them, and I'm sure it was a very fair deal.
I'm sure that it was. But so what was really like your first piece of art that you picked up that was for because you wanted it for yourself? Do you remember what
Oh
that was?
goodness. I mean, it started out like as buying gifts for people.
Yeah.
But then it developed into the point where I started really liking it. But I was more into the comics at the beginning, and I bought I bought a lot of the Gaines sets in the Christie's and Sotheby's sales
Hmm.
and elsewhere. I tried to buy like 2 sets of everything and then get them graded and then keep the nicest one. Is kind of what I did with the Gaines file copies, and usually the 1 and 2 sets.
Hmm. Well, that's wise.
I mean, it wasn't as good an investment as comic art by a long shot.
But who would have known, right?
Yeah.
Then, it really wasn't until, I mean, I don't want to put a date on it, but I mean, there was comics still outperform art in certain ways, but I think we're finally starting to see that change, that shift finally happen where the art's being appreciated for.
I think the art's been appreciating faster than the books for a very long time.
Well, oh yeah, without question. And I just don't know if it's quite caught up to where it should be. I still think, when you think about a graded Amazing Fantasy 15 and what it would go for, and then what the individual pages would go for, I don't feel like the art has quite caught up to what, if you compare it to a comic, because we can have several hundred graded comics over a certain grade 7.5 or higher that can fetch a really great price. But I would think, because they're mass produced, it's still surprising that their value is higher than, say, the 15, 16 pages that made up the artwork inside of it. And that's a bad example for Amazing Fantasy 15. But
I think those pages would bring more than you think. But
well, we'll never know.
We'll never know because they're in the Library of Congress. But
yes,
but they would bring a lot.
They would. No, I know that wasn't the best example, but maybe going back to the
here's a good example for you.
Okay.
In our first auction, I made a deal with Steve because he wouldn't let me do a comic auction. He didn't want to take the chance because he said, we don't know anything about comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I know a little, and the coin auction business is really hard, and our website put us at the top in just a couple of years. And the comics field is underserved. And he just wouldn't relent. And we had a deal that if either one of us didn't want to do something, we didn't do it. And so finally I said, I'll tell you what, I will consign $400,000 worth of my own comic books. So we'll make a profit. I'll consign them unreserved. Just let me have one sale. So of course he had to agree to that.
Right.
And so I consigned, among other things, I consigned a full gain set of Mad's, my second copies of all my Mad comics. This is our first sale. And I think those alone sold for, I mean, I'd be guessing, but definitely into six figures. I think I had paid, 30 or 40,000 for them, and I think they brought about 100.
Wow.
The biggest piece that I bought in the auction was the Silver Surfer #1 cover, which I paid $40,250 for, and I was the only bidder. I paid the reserve.
Oh, wow.
So it might not have even been worth $40,000 at the time. Now, those Mad Gaines file copies are probably worth $400,000 now. That sold for 100. The Silver Surfer cover is, a couple million anyway, right?
I would have to think so.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I got to see this in person at the Marvel exhibit too. So thank you for putting so much great artwork in that. And that was a joy to see. It was right at the end of the, you go through the whole exhibit, and really that was like right one of the last few pieces of original art that you got to see, at least in the way it was set up in Columbus.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. I finally got it back this last week, I think.
Yeah, you were without it for what, about 3 years, or
much longer,
more than that?
Yeah.
Wow. Did they?
But I was proud to have it there. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were there with a lot of other very important collectors. I think that was it was great to see that kind of I don't know. I mean, thoughtfulness from those people who had the artwork in their hands to want to make that exhibit be as great as it is. I mean, it was. I've actually seen that show 4 different times now, and it
really,
it doesn't matter if they swap out any of the art or not. Whatever's there, all the pieces were just incredible, or at least historical, right? I mean, I may not be a huge fan of Ghost Rider, but seeing the first cover and first appearance of the modern Ghost Rider was pretty cool. You don't get those things, just don't happen too often, and even you sharing this artwork on CAF, a lot of collectors at your level would rather not let share stuff. I don't know. I think it's
I think it's why the hobby has caught on, is because people enjoy sharing it.
I would agree with you. I think there's privacy concerns. Who knows? But I think there's you can't change people's philosophy on the pieces that they own, and why they choose to have preserve their anonymity and whatnot in the hobby. But no, I mean, I think
I get it, and it's a personal choice.
Yeah, but I know that you've always kind of been more about wanting to keep the data open, and like you just said, the more competition is out there, the more auction houses, the more dealers are out there, the better it is for the health of the hobby. And
and the archive was another. That was another. It was actually kind of a hard decision, because when we launched it, we were making a lot of money from that data in coins, not in comics. And all of a sudden, we're going to give away our edge to every dealer in America. But I just thought that it would give us so much mind share. And I also believed that coin dealers were mostly very honest people, and that if they're sitting face to face with a collector, and a collector asks them what the best place to go to is, they're going to tell them the truth. And I knew that the dealers would all be very familiar with the Heritage website, because they'd be on it every day.
That makes so much sense. But you've always been open about the data, and wanting to have to give others access to it. I mean, it just
Yeah,
makes
that's it. I look at all the hobbies that have withered away and all the ones that have continued to grow.
Mhm.
And usually the difference is information, is educating the public and especially making sure that they can tell what things are worth so that it's a fair deal. The learning curve has to be quick, especially today when attention spans are so much shorter.
Isn't that the truth? But you've always been on the technology side of things, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
were dealing
yeah.
with computers and
I was a coder in high school.
okay. So that's well, we don't need
Yeah.
to say exactly when that was, but it was in the early days. I mean, I think maybe
It
the
was
computers weren't still on school.
yeah, it was in the late 60s.
Hmm. But you had done I forget what it was. So what was the product that you had put together in the mid '70s? That was it something related to coins and grading, or I'm trying to think. I remember reading something
Oh,
somewhere that
no, I started the first private grading service of a collectible. It was
okay,
called Numismatic Certification Institute. That was in 1984. Now, PCGS came out with a better product 2 years later, and we threw in with that instead. Um, but you get those you get the NCI coins from the old days, and they almost identically match NGC and PCGS grading,
huh,
almost identical. Usually, like if we get back a package with 10 coins, one of them will go up and one of them will go down, and the rest will grade the same. And usually the one that goes up is the most expensive one.
that's interesting. Huh. Wow. See, I don't know anything about coins. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like CGC.
Yeah. Well, back to what we were almost touching on like 10 minutes ago. When we were talking about the more dealers and more auction houses. I mean, one of the
Mhm.
there was a thread on Facebook recently where someone had raised the question about that there's just too many auctions going on, and it's driving some of the prices down here or there, on wherever on maybe on a Heritage Weekly auction on a Wednesday, or maybe one of the competitor ones. And with so much art out there on the market in the last 4 years, I mean, personally, I don't view it because I almost never engage in those
Mhm.
conversations. But what I came in and I said that I disagreed with that. And I actually went and looked at our market data, and I did a January 1 to the current date
Mhm.
for 2023 to 2024, and
Mhm.
the overall sales were up by about, I think it was like around 12.5, 15%.
Yeah, and
And
I
even
think
even
I
on
think
a
that's
variety.
I think that's the average. How I think that's about how much the art has gone up too, on average.
Right. Well, that's what I was going
And
to
of
say. It
course,
was,
some
it was
things
a
go
per
down,
item
some
basis
things
too.
go up.
Yeah.
But I think that the art market is as high as it's ever been.
Without question. I mean, I haven't.
Yeah.
I think it's just when people see like a maybe a poor performing auction here or there, one of the smaller ones, that they feel like the sky is
Or even something falls through the cracks in one of ours.
right. It can happen.
It
I
can
mean,
happen.
and I mean,
Absolutely.
one of the like for you guys, you represent a lot of states. There's only, and this isn't an example of any of the states, but there's only so many like John Buscema Savage Sword of Conan pages inked by your favorite inker that you can own, right? I mean,
Right.
if you own about a dozen of them.
Although John drew a lot of Conan
He
pages.
did. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's so many out there. It's like, how many can you own? Eventually, you're going to
and
saturate the
and
market with people
Alcala
who
is
own
the
them.
inker you want, and he inked a lot of them.
Yes,
So there's enough of them out there, but they're just so good.
I agree. I've actually never owned one, but every time I see them, I'm thinking, why
Yeah,
don't I? Because
yeah.
there's so many out there. But you know what I'm trying to say? It's like you get there. I so it comes back to that whole idea of like we need to find better ways to grow that the buyers, the collectors who are interested in the hobby, to get them to feel more comfortable with bidding, because I think at the end of the day we're still a small collector base. I mean, I think it's bigger than we know, because
Well, yeah, it's much smaller than comic book collectors, I would
oh
say,
yeah, without
by
question.
by a lot, but probably more passionate. Um, and I think it's got a lot of room to grow.
As do I.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
And,
still doing this after all these years without it, without believing in that. But yeah, well, and so that was just my, and I think a lot of it was kind of a 50-50 though. It was surprising how many other collectors felt like we've reached a peak, I don't, I always wonder if
people have been saying that for decades.
right. Well, I think they want to think
Right.
that because hopefully that means that eventually the art will become more affordable, right? Or it might taper off or go the other direction. And so it's
Well,
wishful thinking
you
versus
just
really
have to lower your standards if it becomes more expensive. That's all. You can still find great art cheap.
oh yeah.
You just have to buy things that are out of favor or people haven't discovered yet, or you know, um, learn a new field or something.
Yeah. I mean, back to John Buscema, I always tell people you can buy John Buscema horror pages for still fairly, they're still pretty affordable if you
Well, a
need.
lot of his art. I mean, and he was really one of the very best.
Mhm.
I mean, they call him the Michelangelo of comics.
For a reason, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I mean, so many artists today reference John's work as being, the inspiration for their work. I mean, I think Joe Jusko wishes he was John Buscema's, child. The way he just adores, his work, and
Well,
you
Dusko's
see it
pretty
in his
good
work
too.
too. Oh no, he
He's
is.
really good.
I agree. I completely agree. No, but you can see it.
Yeah.
He has a deep affection for his work, and it's guys like them that encouraged guys like Joe to do the work that they're doing today.
Yeah.
So we're I think we're in the same. We kind of look at this the same way as the more I
I
think.
hope so. I mean, I think it's the logical way to look at it. We're wired to be jealous,
Mhm.
but that's not useful. It's better to be, it's better to root for the other guy because um, usually one person's success migrates in a field like ours.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I would say that I think we've seen certainly with on the rep side of things, we've had a few reps come in here that have definitely kind of revolutionized the hobby in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
and I think that's worked well for uh, reps who were there before them, and the new reps coming in, right? I mean that
Absolutely.
you kind of need innovation here or there to encourage other people to come in, and I think it's to the benefit of the artists that they work for,
Yeah,
because
in a way, I think this field subsidizes the comic book industry in a way because the artists can then sell their art. Maybe not the ones who do it electronically, but the
Mhm.
ones who actually draw art can work for the wages that the comic industry is willing to pay, which are pretty low, because they get to sell the art. And if it weren't for that, then comic book publishers would not be able to hire the caliber of artists that they can hire.
That is very true. I mean, I've heard page rates of late. I mean, they really haven't changed in like 20 years practically.
Right.
Unless you're an artist that is good
Mhm.
enough to have a really good contract, you're pretty much stuck at some pretty low cover rates. They're not great.
Yeah. But the great artists are making really good money selling their art.
Mhm.
And it's certainly worth a lot more if it's published in a comic book. And
Exactly.
especially if it happens to be a comic book that everybody remembers.
Mhm. Well, as long as that keeps happening, I think we'll have artists working traditionally, which is the most
Yeah, I
important.
hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah. Well, look at all the artwork on your walls around you. Is this your office, spare room? What?
Yeah, this is my office at home. Uh, yeah.
So it's not the Halperin vault, but it is the Halperin workspace. That's great.
Right,
You get
right.
now. What's the of all those pieces on the wall? Which piece would you say is the one that brings you the most joy to have in your collection?
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna make the screen go bigger here a little bit so we can get
Yeah.
a better look
I
at it.
mean, Weird Fantasy 21, probably,
Yeah.
almost certainly.
How long have you had that in your collection?
A really long time. I bought it from Glenn Crane, probably I mean, I could look it up. Do you want me to tell you
I'm
exactly?
curious. Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, would something like that have been something that you put on kind of a target list when you decided, you're going all in on comic art? I mean,
Well, um, I mean, Glenn was another one of the old timers who, um, who I did business with and who I met through Jerry Wiest and who I did, a lot of business with. And he he used to have almost all of the Wally Wood science fiction covers.
okay.
And he also happened to have Weird Fantasy 21. And he would, every few months, he would find something else he wanted to buy, and he would call me up and offer me a cover. And in the case of the Wally Wood cover, sometimes I did pass on a Feldstein cover that he offered me, which I shouldn't have, but I did. But every Wally Wood cover he offered me, I just bought. No haggling, nothing. Just sent him a check. And then
Was he? Did he give you the price? Did he?
he would give me the price. He
He,
would name the price, and I would pay it. And it was retail, but it wasn't gouge retail. It was fair retail. And the last or the second to last cover he sold me was the Weird Fantasy 21, or he offered me was the Weird. I mean, if he offered it to me, I bought it. So,
I was just going
and
to
I think maybe the last one was Weird Science 16, which I couldn't afford to keep.
No, just didn't feel right to keep in your collection.
Well, it was no, I mean I really wanted to. It was complicated, but oh, how do I answer that? There was a new buyer that wanted the absolute best, and I knew that, and he asked me what the best one was, and I had to tell him the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to stay in the hobby, so I sold it to him.
Wow.
And since that time, he's spent, tens of millions of dollars in the field. So I think it was a good decision under the circumstances. I mean, not all with us, but a lot of it.
Sure.
So anyway, let me find
Wish you had it back, or is that one of your bigger regrets?
It's not coming back. It's gonna be in a museum.
Good.
But I wish it would come back, but it's not. So I think it looks like I bought it in 2003. Yep, 2003.
Wow.
That's the Weird Fantasy 21.
Well, it's a beautiful cover. I did just show it off a little bit for everybody, but no, I mean that's incredible to have
Yeah,
it.
I don't know. It's not on the group I gave you to
No,
show. It is on my CAF page though.
well, that's true. I could have just been showing it from there. Well. Yeah, I was looking through your CAF gallery. It's your featured pieces. I mean, every one of those would be like the cornerstone in almost anybody's collection. But and they're not all focused in one area or another. EC or Frazetta or more modern stuff like like your Submariner cover or Wrights and Swamp Thing, right? I mean, it's across the board, just perfect examples for.
Well, it's how I learn, because I don't really remember unless I actually pull the trigger.
Yeah, but clearly you keep good records of all of your purchases.
I do.
Collectors do the same. You almost have to these days.
Yeah, you really do have to.
Who you bought it from, or which where you got it.
Yeah,
because people, that is one of the things. Savvy collectors have been asking for a long time, but I'm hearing it more and more. Where people are asking, who did you get it from? Is there any provenance that they can go back and look at?
Mm-hmm.
People are always concerned about fakes or just dubious about, whether or not it's something they can legitimately own. But yeah, having good documentation, it's needed now, but you figure going forward 10, 15, 20 years from now, the kids who are hopefully going to be collecting OA, in their 40s and 50s, I would have to think that those sorts of things are going to be very important, even more important to them than today, just knowing the history of a piece, especially the longer it's been out there on the market, changing hands and whatnot. So yeah, smart thing to do.
Well, do we want to talk about some other art, or?
I do. Well, you did pick 6 pieces for us to talk about tonight.
Okay.
So, and I know the first piece you actually had in hand, or close to being in hand.
Oh, okay. Is that the first piece?
That was I think the order that I queued them up in, or at least maybe
Okay.
the order that you sent them to me.
Well, this is Vault of Horror 32, and you have it. You have the CAF image.
I do, and I have the.
Okay, well, the CAF image is what it used to look like, but this image is without the axe. This is the way it was published, and so this, and the axe is underneath, and the poignant story is that the piece arrived on my desk with a note from Roger Hill.
To be given to James Halperin at Heritage Auctions, Dam, Texas, upon my death, Roger Hill, 2016.
Yeah, I didn't even know he had it. I didn't know it still existed.
Wow. So you framed that, but you have the overlay on the outside of the.
I have the overlay on the outside of the frame, and every time I look at it, I think of Roger.
Doggone. What a gift.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean,
and I the reason I haven't posted it yet is because I wanted to tell the story to you first.
Well, that's incredible, and I mean, I can't say that I've ever seen anybody frame it like that before. Where you've done
I have another one framed like that, actually, that I bought in a Russ Cochran auction. It was another Johnny Craig cover, and it's also on my CAF site, but it's not on the homepage. It's just on, if you look under Johnny Craig.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. Well, that's incredible. I mean, I think there's a reason why Roger Hill was so revered.
Yeah.
His peers and the people that got to know him. He I don't know. Again, that's why I really regret not ever getting the chance to talk with him at all. Just knowing how glowingly everybody talked about him, and clearly, I can only imagine that there's other people out there who've gotten gifts from him.
I know there were. Yeah.
Incredible. But yeah, it's funny. It is a clever framing idea. Robert Berman mentions that. I've just never seen that. So how did you adhere the overlay to the outside of the glass? Is it on the top or the side?
It's just sort of stuck under the.
It's got okay.
The rim of the frame.
Got it.
And then I taped it in. I placed it and taped it into the overlay.
Okay.
To the cellophane. And I have a few different. I have a few pieces of artwork that I have displayed like that. I have the Detective 62 cover like that too, because the most of the Joker images are stats, and then the original art goes over pencil art. The original,
okay,
or maybe it's one of the stats goes over pencil art.
Well, that's pretty cool. I have not seen that before.
Yeah.
Knowing that that's great to see. I think that that's going to give some people ideas on what they can do, because a lot of people might not frame pieces just for that very reason, right? Because it has overlays.
Yeah, you want to be able to see
you want to be able to see it,
Yeah.
right? The opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And thank you, Kazra. Kazra put a link to your Detective 62 cover into the chat, so anybody who wants to see it can go over to CAF and check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Yeah.
I should have your gallery queued up so I can show anything that you're talking
You know
about.
what? I should too.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That way I could message you the link.
exactly. I'm gonna do that right now too, because that, like I say, I mean, there's the 6 pieces you picked out. I mean, you could have picked so many other ones. When I first went to your CAF, you're smacked with that, the Weird Science Fantasy 29 cover, right, by Frazetta, which is such a classic image. And I know you've always been a pretty big fan of Frazetta's work, right?
Oh,
I mean,
you know what? It's not a Johnny Craig. It's a Davis cover.
oh, is it? All right. Now I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's Tales from the Crypt 38.
Okay.
And I'll send you the page, and it's both ways. I've got it imaged both ways. Let's see, private chat.
There you go. Let's close this one and share that one. Oh yeah. Now let's see. You have the
That's not the published version.
right. Here we go.
And that's the published version. And you can see the outline of the overlay.
Oh yeah.
And that was in a Russ Cochran auction a few years back, which is where I got it.
What an incredible image. Now, is that something that you have? So you have it on the wall, framed?
Oh yeah, same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Same cellophane, same deal.
So why do you think they pushed the boundaries like that, knowing that they were going to get censored?
I think they didn't always know.
Yeah.
They didn't know what Gaines was going to say okay to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marcus, for finding a axe for us. But no, it's hard to imagine, because something like that, you would think, yeah, they'd have to pull it. That's a little too grisly.
It seems like it, yeah.
So when this was in
I can only imagine what the Crime Suspense Stories 22 cover looked like originally.
Did when Russ had this in his auction, I mean, did he have it with the overlay on and off so you could see?
Yeah, well, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Mm. Wow.
I can't imagine he didn't. I mean, that was, a lot of the appeal.
Right. Wes says it's tame by today's standards. To a certain degree, maybe.
Well, not by DC and Marvel standards, but
right. We don't have, the comics code is no more, but
maybe the independent standards. Yeah.
Right. Wow. So yeah, that's amazing, and cool that you did that one the same way with the overlay on the outside. I mean, when you have guests over, do you kind of let them see?
Yeah, of course.
All right, I'm gonna have to, someday, if I'm ever in your area,
open invitation.
I would
Anytime you just give me a little notice, and I'll make sure I'm ready.
All right, I think yeah, I'm gonna have to make a trip out there. I'd love to see these pieces. But let's see here. What else do we have? I know there's well, we were just looking at that one. So that one you were gosh, it's just so amazing that that you were able to do the overlay on that thing. That's great.
Well, I mean, I had no idea that it existed.
Yeah.
But I mean, but obviously Roger knew exactly what it was and exactly who it would mean the most to.
Incredible. Yeah. Wow. This other piece that we're going to look at, this is one that I drew a lot as a kid and redrew. I don't know why. I had a book with a lot of like reprinted covers from this era, and there was something about this cover that always, I don't know, sparked my imagination. It made me want to like draw comics. And again, it's such a weird cover. These
Yeah,
the spacesuits are completely abnormal. Not something you
they are.
see.
Well, it was the very first comic book dedicated to science fiction.
Right. I mean, this is Lou Fine, for
Yeah.
those of you who aren't familiar, but I mean, it's just such an amazing image. That the colored book the colors on the printed book were amazing as well, and it's just, I mean, even for me as a kid in the '70s, this image just, you know, really just made me think differently about comics, because I was picking up comics at that point in time. But I forget the book that I'd gotten that had this published cover in it, but it was just a book full of all of these comics from that era. But this is just amazing to see, and to know it's in your collection.
Yeah, that actually came out of a Comic Connect auction.
Now, is that when something like that comes to market, did you know that it was out there, or the whereabouts of it, before Comic Connect was able to offer it?
No, but when I heard that that they were selling that collection, people started telling me, well, it's got the Planet One in it.
That
And
was that.
so, yeah.
And Wes mentions the John Burke collection. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the John Burke collection.
Okay.
That's right. And the first one, not
Okay.
the more recent one. And yeah, I wasn't going to quit bidding until I thought it. I just thought it was great.
Wow. Now, what is this, twice up as well, or what's the size on
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Now, framed, or
Yeah, it's framed. It's framed. It's not in this room, but it's framed. And that's actually I replaced the stat. The stat, it was a repro stat to begin with, but it was very dark, and so I had Claudia made this stat that I think looks just great.
yeah, I'm surprised. It really looks. I mean, I'm looking at it on CAF as well, and on a bigger scan, and it's really well done.
Yeah.
Huh. Matched the tone of the paper really well.
Yeah. Yeah, she did a great job on that.
So again, another. Yeah, it's crazy to think that these pieces are still out there. And here I was looking at the stat. That's just impressive. I can't. That's very good work.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Now, the next piece that
It's actually over the stat it came with. It might even be over the original. I don't remember whether it was the original stat or a repro. But whatever was there before is still there.
So okay, well that makes sense. I mean, you don't, you're not destroying what was there to begin with, whether it was original or not. But you're saying it was just dark. Is that the issue?
Yeah, it was very dark. It didn't match the art.
Mm-hmm. So it didn't present well, if you were to frame it.
It presented well, but it presents better now.
Yeah. Well, congrats on having this one in your collection too. I like I say, I looked at this thing for days and days and days as a kid, and redrew it numerous times. So no, it's incredible.
Well, someday it will be auctioned by Heritage for charity.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be donating things to museums. What I will do is sell things and give the museums the money, and give other charities the money.
Well, you just recently contributed some money to a big project in Dallas, right? Some kind of I forget, it was a bridge concept.
A bridge park.
Bridge park, that's right.
Yeah, they're building a bridge for a park over a highway, and reuniting two communities that were separated by that highway 60 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of get to
and
work with people.
really an underserved part of Dallas that could, you really use something like that. So
Well, I mean, you know better than anyone. I mean, what you can potentially generate and how to use the revenue to do good like that. I mean, it makes while it'd be nice to see some of the pieces end up in a museum if it can benefit the museum in different ways.
well, I also don't want to take them out of the collecting community,
Right, right.
you know. Um, I kind of, in a way, feel that would be disloyal.
Hmm.
And most museums would much rather have the money anyway.
Right. So you weren't the one that donated the amazing fantasy artwork to.
No,
All right. I didn't think so. I didn't think so. Yeah, that had to
no,
have been a disappointment to many,
that
many.
would be on my wall for, you know, I hope a couple more decades. Probably not, but I hope.
Right. No, no, no. I get it. Uh, well, when that happened, it was a shock for everybody. I think that
Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to see art museums. And, you look at
yeah.
going to like the
Well, I
Bill-
mean, Library of Congress is where it belongs, probably. I mean, that's really, really a treasure.
It is, and I have not gotten to go see it myself, but I've had many friends that have gone, and it's
Yeah.
on my
Well,
list.
they have to show it to anybody who asks.
Right.
It was part of the terms of the donation.
Hmm. Which is wonderful that it's in there because at least
Yeah, it's fantastic.
anybody could see it. Which again, if it was locked up in a collection, not many people would get that joy out of getting to see
Yeah.
it in person. So I guess that's saying something. But um,
Yeah,
you
but that's really an outlier.
true.
I
But
mean,
like
that's
Phil
one of
Waterston art's pretty hard to come by too, since he gave most of his work to the Billy Ireland Museum, and
that's
it's
true.
like Calvin and Hobbes artwork.
Oh, sure.
That things of that sort are so it's nice to see. I went to the Billy Island once. I got to see about a dozen Watersons that I would have never gotten to see before. But there's an example of someone whose artwork is totally off the market,
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
the pieces that are out there still.
That's why they sell for so much when they show up.
Right, right,
Yeah.
because those pieces are going nowhere. I mean, they're going to stay in the Billy Ireland, but like the Amazing Fantasy 15 pages, you can pretty much request to see anything you want from it. Go in and they set them up just like they do at the Library of Congress. A few of my friends actually went to Billy Ireland and kind of set up about 100
Really?
different pieces of artwork that they wanted to see, and they put them all out for you. And they let you handle it, and it's nice.
Yeah, it is.
But you're not going to own it.
Yeah.
Well, and Robert Berman was agreeing with you on he was saying preach it when you said that you would never donate it because you want to keep the artwork in collectors' hands. That's I think we all appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Now, don't hold me to that about everything, but I'd say 99% of it,
Mm,
of the value, I'm gonna sell to collectors
sure.
or sell into the market, because I think I don't know, those are my people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, it's a pleasure. I would have to being able to pass on pieces like that. I mean, even we collectors that say at different thresholds, it's always great when you pass on a piece to somebody loves it, right?
Mhm.
I've had the pleasure of doing that a few times myself, and it's always a little disappointing when you let it go. But it's nice to know that the person who now is the owner caretaker of that artwork loves it as much as you did, or maybe even more. And it does bring you a
Yeah.
lot of pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I think most collectors are probably in that same mindset.
I
Now,
hope so. I mean, that's for me, that's what collecting is about.
does your I don't know why it just popped in my head, but does your wife collect anything? Does she collect art? Does she collect coins or anything, or do
Not
you
really.
dominate the wall
She
space?
has a little collection of Barbies.
That's her nostalgia, right?
That's right.
Well,
we collected statues, Harriet Frischmuth statues of dancers,
okay.
back in the 80s and maybe early 90s. And we still have those in our house. And, she runs a dance company now. She used to be, when I met her, she was a professional modern dancer in New York City. And she also taught dance at Connecticut College and Yale.
Oh, wow.
And then when she moved to Dallas, she got her MFA and then taught at TWU, and then became executive director of Bruce Wood Dance Company. Bruce Wood was a very, very talented choreographer from the Dallas area.
Okay.
And she's run that dance company ever since. This was maybe 15 years or more. And he died about 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, you both were very, involved in different cultural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's rare, I think, in a lot of ways. My wife's a programmer, so
Well, I knew I had to marry somebody that had her own life.
Right.
I couldn't marry somebody who was gonna, want a lot of attention all the time.
So you're saying
I was a realist.
but you're a very busy person in your.
I was ambitious when I was at that age.
Mhm.
I guess I was 31 how old was I? Yeah, almost 32 when we got married.
So you're around getting close to 40th anniversary then, right?
Passed, yeah.
Oh, you passed. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were in your 60s. So in your 70s. Okay.
Yeah. No, I am. I'll be 72 in 2 days.
Oh, wow. November 1st? Really?
October 31st.
Or 31st. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Why did I think it was?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit behind. My daughter's birthday is November 1st. She missed Halloween by 2 hours.
Really?
We tried.
Mm-hmm.
we tried. Yeah, she was reluctant. She was hesitant to come out on Halloween.
Uh-huh. It's not good to have both on the same day.
No.
It's not good as a kid to
Right.
have both on the same day.
Yeah, because everybody's preoccupied, aren't they?
Well, not really, but it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Too much sugar in one day.
Well, maybe
you want to spread it out a little bit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody's wishing you a happy early birthday in the chat.
Thanks.
So yeah, Marcus says you were guaranteed candy, but too much candy.
Yeah.
So hey, we do have 3 other pieces of art to look at here, and they're all pretty spectacular.
Okay.
So we can switch over to this Vampirella 19 piece. So I know this piece always had that. Enric was the one who painted it, but
Gonzalez
was the one who was.
He was the penciler, and Gonzalez was the painter. Yeah, I think that's what Enric told us, and I believe him.
I mean, why would he, pass the credit on to somebody else if it makes sense?
Well, no, Gonzalez is the one that always got the credit because his signature's on it.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so what was this? You've had this on CAF for quite some time. So
I bought that actually. Charles Martinetti used to own that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know who Charles Martinetti.
No, I don't. I've heard the name before.
Yeah, we auctioned his illustration art collection, but this was way before that. This was in I don't remember whether it was in the 90s or not, but I can look that up too if you want. But he consigned it to Mastro. I bought it in 2002, and And so I bought it in the Mastro auction, which was a sports auction, really, but it had some of Charles Martinetti's art in it. And I had known Charles since we were teenagers. He was from the Boston area.
So did you know that he had this piece in his collection?
No, I didn't know.
Huh. What is the size of this? Because obviously it's been printed
It's
like
very big.
Okay.
It's not quite life size, but it's very big. Maybe I don't know, between 4.5 and 5 feet.
Wow. Yeah, well, there you go. Antoine just asked the same question. Yeah, I always assumed it was pretty large. I couldn't imagine that it was painted at the same, because I know it was printed like 6 feet tall.
Yeah, it might have been the same size as the posters, but I don't think it was. I think it was a little smaller. But it's still it's very impressive in person.
Yeah. Now, is this one hanging in the house?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You give me just more reason to go. I've always wanted to see that piece. I mean, that's a piece of history right there. That's I think like over 50 years old.
I have, our house is balkanized. There are places where I cannot put comic art.
Okay.
It's part of a treaty.
I understand. But it's not hanging in your office, though, or is it?
It is not.
Okay. I mean, that would be to me, that would be a showpiece. I don't know what I don't know.
Well, I see it a lot.
Good.
It's in a room I go to a lot.
Yeah, awesome. That is special. Now, this next piece by Wally Wood, Weird Science 17. Wood did so many spectacular sci-fi illustrations over in his time, but I mean, this is one of my favorites. I just think it's amazing. I mean, what appealed to you about this one?
It just had everything. I mean, I couldn't afford, when I was buying these from Glenn, I couldn't afford to keep a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Because I knew he was going to call me in 45 days with another one, and I didn't want to not have money when he called. But this is one of the 3 that I kept. And then I bought one of them back. So I think I've got 4 of them. But he sold me, almost all of them, 11 or 12 of them, I think. And this was, this one was always too good to sell.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. I was just looking through your CAF to see the other. I think you have 2 other ones that are in your CAF gallery.
Yeah, I think one of them, the one Weird Science 13, I actually rebought. Rebought it from Glenn. Glenn sold it to me. I auctioned it, and then 10 years later, maybe, or longer, Glenn bought it, and then he sold it to me a year after that.
Well, it's collectors selling to collectors, right? I mean, it's round and round.
And Glenn didn't have Glenn would have like a theme, and he would collect things with that theme. And this isn't the one. This is not the one that.
Right. No, I saw this one too.
Yeah, that's the one that.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was 9, not 13. And Glenn would have a theme, and he would collect that theme and put together this incredible collection, and then he would sell it and go on to something else. It was just, he did it for the fun of it. He does it for the fun of it. He still does it. Wow. And he loves collecting. He's I don't know if you know Glenn. He's such
I do not know. I mean, I've heard the name, but that's interesting. So it's more about kind of, I don't want to say conquering that, a set of.
No, I think it's just, I mean, he learns as he does it. He's got an amazing eye. Mm-hmm. And the more he's probably like me. He doesn't, he remembers it better if he actually owns it, and maybe forgets it if he just sees it somewhere. That's how I am. So maybe he does it to learn. I'm not really, I'm not really sure, although, you know, I was like that too. So, um,
Yeah, well, I don't know, but like you said, a great eye, and it's kind of cool that the pieces went back and forth between
yeah,
the two of you a little bit. Yeah, these are just great to see. Wally Wood was absolutely amazing. Yeah, I like that a lot.
yeah, this isn't even considered his peak period,
Hmm.
but it was his first EC science fiction cover. Might have been his first EC cover.
But he's so imaginative. You know,
Yeah,
he did a lot of character design and whatnot, and you can see it just in this piece alone that what what a crazy imagination for that era.
yeah.
I don't know how he did it, or where these ideas
No,
came from,
I don't either.
but I'm glad that he was working in comics.
Me too.
My goodness. Here, I'll hide that one, and then what do we got left? Oh, we have, well, one other piece, and this was one that was in the Marvel exhibit as well. It was like the thing that got you started in the, you know, throughout the whole museum presentation was this piece, and I actually didn't know it was there when I first got to see it in Columbus, and it was just shocking to see a piece of art from that era, from the first Marvel book, you know, even you know, in existence, let alone like right in front of me. I mean, it was wonderful that you contributed this piece to that show.
Yeah, well, they said it was the one they got the most comments on. Um, and it was they every time they asked if they could borrow things, they said, if you don't give us anything else, just give us this one back. And of course, I gave them everything they wanted, but um, yeah, it
Yeah,
was. I don't know whether it was published in Marvel One first, though. I never looked at the story. There was at least part of that story was in. I don't remember the name of the comic now. It'll come back to me, and you know, as soon as the show's over, probably. But it was in a movie theater produced comic that's very rare. And I don't know if that page was in it or if that page was left out of that publication, but it was before, it predated Marvel One.
well, I think the significance of this piece is that, you know, being at the beginning of the exhibit, it was a piece that really nobody's familiar with, because kind of after that you go right into, say, the FF, you know, section,
Mhm.
and there's covers and interiors and drawings and things that you've seen before. You know, then you move into Avengers and the Black Panther, and so on. This piece is one of the ones that's kind of starts things out. It just it caught me by surprise because it was something you weren't expecting to see, and it's just something you haven't seen. So it stood out as being, you know, probably the most unique piece in the exhibit, just for that reason. And I, I think that's what made it incredibly special to even people who maybe weren't as familiar with, you know, they only went there because they're familiar with the Marvel movies, right? But this
Sure.
being what they see first, it was substantive to their, you know, really getting to know what the exhibit was about. And yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was
Well,
well.
I guess that book was the beginning of the Marvel universe.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's true. And I read in your description for this piece that it was in the estate of Pete Morisi, and they were an artist, right?
Um, I believe so, and it was I think it was in a pile of art that a dealer bought just as a pile of art, and he didn't even know it came from Marvel One, and then did research and found out it was.
Wow, it's just crazy. You know, the idea that something like this was sitting in someone's, you know, flat file for
Yeah,
all those years, and but it really looks in great shape. I mean, I know that, you know, it's kind of hard to tell from the images here, but just seeing it in person, it was quite remarkable.
yeah. I mean, it as best we could tell, there was no restoration on it. It's just the way, you know, just the way it was drawn.
Yeah. Well. congrats on that one. I mean, that's a piece of history that, obviously I think we're all envious to know is out there and in your collection. But yeah, we could have looked at a lot of different stuff. I was picking.
No, it wasn't Crime Suspense Stories 22 on the links I sent you?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was. I did the wrong order. I had it in the wrong order. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's my favorite piece of art.
Now, why is that? Tell me how that, how this became the favorite of yours.
Well, for one thing, I got it from Roger Hill.
Yep.
So that adds some sentimental value. He made me trade him something that I really didn't want to trade, but as I always did, I said yes. I mean, this is really the beginning. See, the thing is, I started with Mad Magazine, and this covers the beginning of Mad Magazine. Even though it has no, it's not the same kind of humor. Let's put it that way. If you think it's humorous, which, I mean, it was sort of designed to be humorous, I think, but as most horror kind of is, really. But this is the cover that Bill Gaines was questioned about at the Senate hearings.
Right.
And if you don't know the story, I'll tell it to you. But I think most people in the comics field probably know the story.
No, let's how about it?
Well, Estes Kefauver, who was head of the Senate committee, held up an image of this cover and said, "Mr. Gaines, do you think this cover is in good taste?" And Bill Gaines answered, "Yes, Senator, I do." And Kefauver said, "Well, what would it have to have been for it not to be in good taste?" And Gaines said, "Well, if he held the head a little higher and you could see where the neck was truncated with blood dripping from it, I don't think that would have been in good taste." And that was pretty much the end of of EC Comics as we knew it, and the beginning of Mad Magazine.
Oh my goodness. Well, he's almost right. I'd say sure, if I could see a little bit of an esophagus there and some.
Yeah. And it was probably originally drawn that way. In fact, it says in Overstreet that it was originally drawn that way. We don't know what's underneath, but you can see that the whole, basically almost the whole image is an overlay. So there's something there could be something underneath it. Or maybe they just cut it. I don't know. But I haven't looked. I'm guessing that the odds of it having the truncated neck underneath are probably not that high. But maybe. But anyway, there's a picture of this cover in the New York Times in Bill Gaines's obituary. I think it's the only comic book cover shown in his obituary.
Interesting.
It was, it was pivotal in his life, and without that testimony and without the Comics Code Authority, I think Mad would have just stayed a comic book and not had the incredible influence that it's had on society, almost entirely for the better, for decades. Educated entire generations around the world on how to think critically and how to be skeptical of business and government and religion and cigarettes and and to think for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking, or you're saying in its own way that the whole issue of Gaines being put in front of them, what ended up being a positive, the having to switch.
Like most tragedy. I mean, never what is it? Never waste a good crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew. I was not as into Mad Mag, but I got them all the time. I
Yeah.
read
I
because
read them all cover to cover for, I would say, from the time I was 8 until I was probably in college.
Yeah, well, Mad was one of the things that everybody in our family could read. So
Yeah.
it's the one book that my mom, my father, and my brother all liked to read just as much as I did. They
Yeah.
didn't. Most of them didn't like the comic books I read, but if I had a Mad magazine in there, everybody had to read it. And not too many things can kind of touch people in that way, where it's accepted by everyone, or most everyone in a family. So
Yeah. And for a teenage kid, an impressionable teenage kid, it's hard to imagine a better, mass marketed influence than Mad Magazine during that time.
right, no, so true. The all of the creators that worked with Mad Magazine were just had incredible careers,
Yeah.
and wow, yeah, and it's funny, I know you've probably owned some Mad Magazine artwork. I have to imagine, right? If I go, I'm not looking at your CAF gallery again, but
Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
probably have a few nice pieces.
Yeah. In fact, that piece is at the Norman Rockwell Museum now.
Oh, it is. So
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
as part of the Mad exhibit there.
I have not gotten to see that. I had someone who sent
Yeah.
me a whole bunch of photographs from that exhibit. It looked amazing. I assume you haven't, you weren't able to go to see an exhibit like that, do
I
you?
actually did not get there.
No?
I planned to a couple times and it just didn't work out. Something got in the way. My wife saw it. She was near there, at a spa, and she and I guess a friend or two of hers drove to the museum to look at it, to look at the exhibit, and um, she thought it was great, but I never saw it.
No. Did you get to the Marvel exhibit that was out?
I never saw that in person either.
Well,
Yeah,
something needs to be done about that, Jim.
yeah, I know.
Well, when you come to OAX, we will have at least 5 different art exhibits at the show. We're,
Great.
we're working out the details on what those will be, but
Okay.
yeah, it'll be like going to a gallery. So
Yeah. All right.
I'm looking forward to having you experience that. The galleries weren't one of the things that people knew we even had, because it's kind of in a separate room. But
Okay.
we're going to do a much better job of letting people know that we've got a few exhibitions going on. I think that will make people be pretty happy.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
the themes?
Well, and I just
You don't know
emailed.
yet?
What? No, I don't.
Okay.
Or I do, and I can't say. But
Ah, okay.
uh, I did just email with I forget her name, but the woman at Heritage who kind of books everything. So we made sure about the tickets, or the how many badges Heritage needs and all that. And I
Okay.
appreciate you guys supporting us first show, and
We
now.
always will.
Well, it means a lot. It gives us the
Yeah.
confidence, and obviously the ability to do more with what our plans are. We have lot of we have a lot of ambition, with OAX as a show, and it's something that I think we're going to see evolve over time. But it's important. It's needed. A lot of
It is.
the
It is.
creators were really happy just knowing that the show existed in the U.S., and it made it, it just was trying to elevate the arts. Like Dan Jurgens couldn't have been more complimentary. Even when I was pitching the idea about the show to him, he was like, "I don't care if I go. It's at the end of the day, this is a show that I've been wanting somebody to do, for a long time," and it really just kind of fit. It fit well
Yeah.
into like what we've been trying to do with comic art fans as well, but doing it face to face. Everything,
Mhm.
we've got so many things that are virtual, and the virtual cons that we've done since the pandemic started, that having an in-person show just made the most sense. Yeah, and it really fit really well with I guess our long-term goals of growing the hobby and whatnot. So we'll see if all that comes to fruition or not.
Well, hopefully they'll be synergistic. CAF and the show will be synergistic with each other, and the parts will be, I mean, the sum of the parts will be dwarfed by the whole.
I hope so. Yeah, and so I mean, you probably haven't heard this, but we even have an app coming out in November. So for comic card fans, at long last, I know you guys have had your app out there for a while, and it's great. But yeah, we finally have. We've been working on it for almost a year because
How will it be different from the website?
Well, we're calling it decaf at the moment because it's a little bit it's CAF light. It's very focused on the gallery.
So it's just a little faster, or
faster. It has better search capabilities than Comic Card Fans has.
How could you? I don't know how you could improve.
Well,
on
it's just
search.
smarter things.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not, like CAF, everything's a pull down menu when you want to do a search, right? If you want to search on Wally Wood and an art type, you have to pick covers, and then you have to switch and pick pages. Well, with the app, we've got
you can just do one keyword and it'll find everything.
Well, you can do a keyword and you can multi-select. Now you can select like just show me everything that's a cover, title page, or a splash page, which would have had to have been done in 3 searches before. And now you can do just one, and also even combine those by art type. So if you're interested in watercolors versus pen and ink, or only those 2 mediums, you can throw those into. And again, none of that could be done on CAF before. So what we're trying to do is we've been looking to streamline things with the app, and then have what we've learned from the app influence what we end up doing with the Comic Card Fans redesign. We just learned a lot how to consolidate things. There's so much. CAF is cumbersome after 23 years, right? There's so much in it that we felt like distilling it down into an app and trying to just figure out what are the most important elements to people that use CAF today, and then Kazra says it won't use AI. No, it will not use AI. But we're trying, we just wanted it to be an easier to understand, like a person could jump in and understand what CAF is right away. Today, somebody going to CAF, they're overwhelmed. They don't know that people come to CAF and they think it's just
maybe I'm just too used to it. I don't know, but
well, that's what it is. We've all grown up with it, so we know all of its all of the things that aren't right or don't work well or whatnot. But we know our way around it because we grew up with it. But someone who comes to CAF new, I can't tell you how many emails I get where people think that it's one person posting all this art. They don't understand that it's a collector-based site. It's just that it boggles their mind that that this is a community of collectors. So that's something that we clearly have we need to convey that better to people coming into the hobby or coming into CAF, because CAF gets viewed by almost 350,000 people every single month, just by keyword searches and whatnot. But how do we convert those people to be interested in picking up a piece of art here or there? I think that's the where we're missing a little bit of an opportunity, and hopefully, getting the app out there will introduce it to a different audience that might have might catch on a little bit quicker. And then, but again, in what we're doing in that will influence the redesign of CAF eventually, so that we can hopefully try to give people who are stumbling into CAF an actionable reason to join and start participating in the community. And I think
the other thing is they might accept notices on their phone when they wouldn't give you their email address.
Absolutely. Yeah. Push notifications and things like that are going to be are coming out in the second version, which we hope to have out by probably around OAX time. So but we wanted to get the first version out there to get people used to using it. And then in the second one, it's going to have we're adding in a bunch of new features and just getting all those alerts and getting everybody just used to getting pinged by CAF and in a different way. So it's going to be fun. But I've been using it for 6 months. I wake up to it. I go to bed looking at art on CAF. I'm spending more time on CAF than I ever have because it's on my phone now. And I never thought I would say that. I know more about my users today than I did 8 months ago, just because I literally can see everything in a different light.
Well, I use CAF on my phone all the time.
I know, but it's not perfect. It's not, it's not mobile friendly.
Well, the app's not going to be perfect either. I mean,
I know, but
but it's going to be great, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah, I feel 10 years younger when I use the app. It's true. But either way, you'll enjoy it.
I will. I
I
will.
guarantee it.
When can I get a beta?
Well, I think we're going to be actually submitting it for approval at the end of this week or like the first of next week to get it into the App Store. So
Oh, really?
I'd like
Okay.
to think that within 3 or 4 weeks' time, everybody can be giving it a try. Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
gotten into that level. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
and it'll be exciting because I mean, it'll be neat to hear what people have to say about it, and be giving people a list of the things that are going to go in V2 that I think will make everybody happy because it's like I said, it's a decaf version right now. It's CAF light.
Okay.
V2 is going to be a lot more feature rich, and I think it'll make again. I want those things in there.
Call it a half calf.
I have exactly. I know we've been joking around trying to figure out what the right thing for it. It could half calf, decaf, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love it. But listen, Jim, we went a little bit longer than I thought we were going to go, but
Yeah, me too, but didn't
thank you.
feel like it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So again, I look forward to getting to see you at OAX. I think a lot of people who are going who probably not had the opportunity to meet you before are going to enjoy getting to see you at OAX as well. I know that I think is Joe and Nadia coming? Because I don't think
I hope so. I don't know.
Okay. All I know is 6 people from the team are coming.
Okay.
So
I hope they're going, but you know, I haven't seen them in person. I see them every week at our comics meeting, but I don't see them in person that often. So I hope they'll be there.
exactly. Well, we'll see. I know that they said they were hoping they could get to go. I think I'll be talking with Joe in a few weeks. But I know that not to plug anything, but I think I got an email or a text that the latest signature auction just started today. Is that right?
Yeah, it just dropped.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe a couple hours before the show. So people are saying they're going to come to OAX with a resume. Don't do that, everybody. Don't that. These OAX should be all about pleasure and enjoyment of the hobby. But I'm glad you're going to be there. I think
Who said that?
number one Marvel fan said, "See you at OAX with a resume."
Oh, just email me your resume. I'm always looking for talent.
There you go. Well, I had a feeling that's probably true. At the end of the day, I think the more that's one of the cool things that we've been doing. Now that I work with Kazra and we're bringing on some additional help, it's just great surrounding yourself with people who have a similar mindset, same passion for the arts and this hobby and the genre of work that we collect, all kind of having the same goal. I mean, that's the last 4 or 5 years has just been a really big eye opener for me in terms of what CAF has meant to people and the significant role I think that we can play in the future of the hobby that we're just beginning to kind of wrap our hands around. But the next few years are going to be a lot of fun, and I'm just glad that you and the team at Heritage have always been really supportive of what we've been trying to do. You were the first person
I
that
think it's worked both ways. I think we've been great for each other.
Well, I'd like to think so after all this time, but yeah, well, listen, I'm not going to keep you anymore, Jim, but thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for hanging out in the chat and everybody as well. I appreciate you giving us your thoughts throughout the evening, and yeah, we'll be at it again tomorrow night with another show. But Jim, thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.